this next half, we will be looking at SPLOST. Of course, Karen has shown you guys what funding resources you have. You have a copy of the department's 5-year capital plan. And of course, as both myself and the mayor have mentioned, we have gotten confirmation that it is the intention of Douglas County to have a SPLOST on the November ballot. So I'm going to start off with letting our legal counsel talk to you about all of the legal dealings as it relates to SPLOST. Yes,
Okay, well, state the obvious, it's a sales tax and you need a referendum from the county in order to authorize it. If it passes, it's a 1% sales tax. And if you look under tab 3, you'll find the GMA primer on SPLOST. It's about 4 years old, but it hasn't changed too much since then. On page 2 is a list of types of projects. We choose the project for the referendum and educate the public on what those projects would be. We cannot spend money to promote it or to advocate for its passage, but we can educate the public. All right, there are your projects, roads, including road repair, library, courthouse, jail, development authority property, parks facilities, PD, transit, hospitals, and now they have added state-owned facilities. So if you want to build college for Highlands on our property, we can do that. Let's see. All right, coming on down over on page 5, we'll talk a little bit about the process. When a county is thinking of calling the SPLOST, what they need to do is to give us at least 10 days notice if they want to get together with us and meet and confer about possibilities for the city to be included. And I say the city, we're talking about Douglasville. It's a little bit different than Lost, where Austell and Villa Rica were always included with their population share, not so in SPLOST. But the county would need to meet with Douglasville. We would meet and confer about that, and that from the time of that meeting, the county still could not call the SPLOST for at least 30 days for everything to sort of settle down and get in place. And then there's an advertising requirement if the county does call for SPLOST, and then the elections folks will need time to print the ballots, so it's a good thing we're not going to try to go for the May date for referendum, and that we're going to go for November 8th for anything. One of the new changes to SPLOST law is that now the state takes 1% of what is collected in SPLOST, not the penny, but the 1% for motor fuel tax. After that, the distribution depends on what kind of project is being offered. If a level 1 or tier 1 project is what the county is proposing, and those are listed in the materials, generally it's a jail, a courthouse, a county administration building, and possibly one other, but the county has some rather new buildings on that list, so we hope that they will not be calling for that. But if they did, we wouldn't have any shot at getting any of that SPLOST at all. It wouldn't even be their choice. That would be a 5-year SPLOST to fund those projects only.
This is what occurred, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
This is what occurred with the new jail in the county in the last SPLOST. Last year it was a tier 1 and the city had no opportunity for any funding.
yes.
And Susan, and let me clarify, so what this is calling for the referendum is a continuation of an existing 1% that is already in place.
Probably is.
Yes.
Yeah, there is an existing SPLOST now.
Yes.
Okay, and so this would be a referendum that's basically continuing something that's already in existence and in place.
Yes.
And so this is just looking at how the distribution might occur if you all are able to enter into an agreement.
With a new target as to what the funds would be used for.
Right,
Does the county have to participate with us, or can they just leave
I'll have
us?
to defer to your attorney.
Our understanding is that only the county can call this.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I understand that, but does the county have to split it with us?
Well, I'm going to talk about tier 2 projects next. And if they don't call for one of those tier 1 projects, then yes, they do have to split it with us, it's just a matter of how much. We get at least our population share of it, so as Marshall was saying, about 30%. But they can give us more if they want to. They could allow some for the other small municipalities. But anyway, that's what the split would be. And the benefits of having a contract that you have in place, an intergovernmental agreement about what projects are gonna do with the county is that you get an extra year. You can go for 6 years instead of 5 if you've got an intergovernmental contract.
And I'll say this, the likelihood that the county will have a tier 1 SPLOST, I don't think that they're going there. And the reason I say that is because both my conversations, and I think the mayor's conversations as well, is that the county has suffered, be it for transportation money, just as we have, and their transportation needs are greater than ours. So I think that the big bulk of their projects are gonna be transportation related, which, you know, is a bonus for us, but we would have to confirm that. But that's my thought process as to where they're going.
Let me just back up a little and say that if we're doing tier 2, there are a couple ways to do it. One is we just take our population amount, and while we have to tell them what our projects are, we don't really have in place any contract. And the contract is a very good thing, especially just for administrative purposes, because then we know when we're gonna get our money and such as that, and we're all in agreement on how it's gonna be done and how receipts are gonna be provided and such as that. Also, if you have that contract in place, the tax doesn't stop. It goes for the whole 6 years, whether or not you have paid for the entire project. So for example, if you pay for your stuff in 5.5 years, the next 6 months of tax doesn't stop there. It comes on in and you can retire existing debt with it. So that's another reason why you want a contract.
Ms. Littlefield, I see on page 2 where you talked about the types of projects. Is that all inclusive? Are there other possibilities? Is there any, or is this the limit on what we can do?
This is right out of statute as it existed in 2012. There have been 2 additions since then. One of them is, I said, they have now codified the fact that you can do road repairs. You can do it for certain take off the farm. But they've also added the possibility to fund state facilities within your own jurisdiction.
I'm sorry I was behind. What about the top tier 1, tier 2 project description? Where is that in here?
Okay, I think that is number 2.
On page 2, number 2?
Page 2, that's number 2.
When you referenced a contract, you mean a contract between the city and county?
Well, let me back up, Councilman Adams. Number 2 contains a lot of them, but if you want an exhaustive list of the tier 1 projects, let me find you a different reference here.
And as it's been mentioned, there's no idea yet as to exactly what the county wants to do.
Correct.
But it doesn't seem that there would be a tier 1 project on the horizon.
Based on our preliminary discussions, correct. And that would be page 10. I think Ms. Littlefield's getting to that.
I see it,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, right, there it is. Page 10. Okay, we've already covered the procedure. All right, when would we start getting the tax? Well, most of the time, you're gonna have an intergovernmental agreement and the county is going to bond it. So you can get most of your money at the beginning if you agree all that in the intergovernmental agreement. As to when the tax will be effective, it becomes effective, well, let me just tell you that if we pass it in November, it'll become effective on April 1. That's when the taxpayers will start paying it. All right, let's see. So we may have covered everything. I believe that's all I wanted to say this afternoon, but let me know if you have questions about it.
Anybody has any basic questions about procedures, basic upfront information on SPLOST and how it works?
This is a sideline question in terms of, you were saying you could not advertise if you're a proponent for it or against it, and just educate the community, the public on what the SPLOST is. Yes, ma'am. And so during that 5 year or 6 years, if we sign a contract with the county, can we say, I've seen in other communities, this is where your SPLOST dollars are being, utilized for, or, and I'm not certain if I've seen that a lot in our community, would that be something on, that the general fund would have to take care of, or can you do that? Would that be inclusive in your SPLOST to, you know, just give an update to the community? Like, for example, if a road is completed and it says your SPLOST dollars at work, and you show a sign saying, so that people see, okay, well, now my 1% has, finished Chapel Hill Road for the city and county, for
Yes, ma'am, that's fine, I don't know if you can spend plus dollars for the sign, but you can certainly post the sign because you're not promoting an upcoming SPLOST. Also, I didn't mean to say that you folks can't speak well in support of the SPLOST, you can. The city cannot spend money in support. For example, we can't spend a couple $100 on flyers to mail out saying, please vote yes.
Okay.
And also, this is the SPLOST information. Now I have a different flyer on my desk, that I saw that's done by an outside agency that's helping, the school system promote the SPLOST. It's not done by the school system, but this basically says what's on the ballot, what's part of the project, and the dates. So, and Ms. Littlefield is saying this is okay.
Private entities
Yes.
spend their money,
Correct.
and they may want to do that.
Yeah.
And this funding comes in monthly, or does the monthly funding come in?
It depends on what you agree to do.
The one that we have now is,
It was based on a reimbursement request, so we would spend the money and then we would get reimbursed. We did have problems when there were, the county and the city were in, how do I say?
Not in the best relationship.
okay,
That our money was held for 3 months. So if,
We're committed.
it crossed over fiscal years too, to make it worse. So I had to show our financial statements, you know, due from Douglas County governments. But, it was quite a bit of money that they held because, they had to have 2 signatures before they could cut a check. Just conveniently too, right.
Is that the procedure, or can you have another?
That's where Ms. Littlefield is, recommending that an intergovernmental agreement is a good idea.
now the one that we have now, when does it end? I mean, the money coming in, does it end?
We're done with all our expenses. We spent the last bit on West Ponds.
Okay,
Yes, so.
got it.
Yes.
And we're not in an intergovernmental agreement, as Ms. Littlefield said, where we're continuing to collect the money. That's not this current situation.
Because we were not included in the tier 1 project, correct?
No, we're talking about the prior SPLOST.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So how difficult do you anticipate it will be to enter into an intergovernmental agreement
It was
this
not,
coming time?
it was not that hard the last time we did it. Took a couple of meetings,
What year was that?
long time ago.
Yeah,
10
years, not that long.
Even during the time when we were fussing about annexation, the intergovernmental agreement is just basically administrative.
Yeah.
The hard part's gonna be getting them to
Reach
agree
to the
with our
projects.
projects.
I
Alright.
just imagine if it's hard to get signatures, it'd be, on a check, it may be difficult getting signatures on it. But maybe just.
That's looking back. We're gonna look forward.
Okay.
We're gonna be positive.
Remember the ground.
Right, Mayor? You have great relations with the chair.
Very good.
Yes. All right, well, we're gonna now start talking about our recommendation on projects. And I think, you know, the easiest one I think that we all can agree on is gonna be roads. Yeah, we really, as Ms. Callen showed you, when you look at our reserve and our fund balance, we don't have a ton of money to spend on road projects. Of course, you know, we do a lot of resurfacing through LMIG, which is not a ton of money. But if you go to, you got a blue sheet behind the SPLOST presentation, you'll see some definitions there, but you go to the first page that looks like this, transportation, City of Douglasville, this sheet that looks like this. This is where Ms. Wright's presentation first starts. So she's gonna kind of give you an idea of where we are as far as the condition of the road projects that are out there, and keeping in the back of your mind what Ms. Callen has said as possibility of money that we can bring in, which is $37 million, but of course, roads has a big price ticket, and of course, when you looked at the pie chart that Ms. Callen showed you before, we spent about $18 million the last time on roads. All right, so is everybody, where Ms. Wright is gonna start her presentation?
We actually, if you go to the next page, I had some questions in the past from council members about what kind of transportation studies we've done, and the next two pages show that. We started in about 1995 with a downtown Douglasville parking study. And you can look through there, we've done State Route 5, our Place Mall, downtown, economic and demographic, Douglasville Marketplace, master plan for multimodal, believe it or not, transportation center, minibus feasibility study. So throughout the years, you can see we've got 2 pages of studies being done. There was a gap from about 2007 to about 2010. And that was when we were having the lean kind of economic years. So you could, that's just for your information. The last studies are that we did is I-20 at State Route 5 Right Star Road study, and the LCI plan, which we're getting ready to update. Okay. Then the next page is our transportation plan, the comprehensive transportation plan. It was done in 2008, and we're getting ready to update the plan this year. And if you look on there, all the projects in yellow are ones that we have completed or under construction. The ones in blue are either GDOT or the county's jurisdiction, and then 2 were removed. So if you look at that, we really don't have a whole lot of projects left since 2008 that we haven't done. So I think we've made quite good progress on this. We have done, and some of these might be a little bit outdated, but we've done most of our projects. So that shows you our transportation plan and our project list.
Now, before Michelle leaves off of this page, many of you know Greg Roberts has been ill, so he's not able to be here today, but I did speak with him. He was going to share in the presentation with Ms. Wright. On this list that she has, the ones, of course, that he is recommending that are a great priority if we're looking, is going to be, of course, Douglas Boulevard, Stewart Mill Road, and Chicago, Chicago Avenue. Of course, there are others, but those are ones that he highlights that we really need to take a look at because of the cost associated with those projects, and this being our opportunity to get those done.
Isn't GDOT working on like Highway 5? Isn't there a project with?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into that, all the projects we have going, so I'm gonna further along. Okay, so the next page is, it just shows you where these projects are located throughout the county. Okay, and then the page after that is our and I'm sorry it's so small, but I had to reduce the larger map, is our bicycle and pedestrian plan. And we are in the process right now of updating it with the Douglasville, Douglas County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And we have started that process, and that'll go along with the CTP. When we update the CTP, the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, it'll be a year-long update, and we're doing it jointly with the county, since roads don't just stop at city or county lines. The next page is what we had recommended, and when we had the Transportation Investment Act, I don't know if you all remember that, in 2010, and these were the projects that were recommended, and as you can see on this, is like the State Route 92, that's under construction. I-20 HOV lanes, that's a GDOT project, and they more or less control that. But the Maxim Road at Thornton Road, intersection improvement, that's already under works. And then, let's see, we have a multi-use path, and then the State Route 6 truck lanes, we have projects on that now too. And then I-285 West I-20 interchange reconstruction is going to be done under what they call the TFA, the new Governor's HB 170 program. That is a project that is listed there. So that gives you an idea of what we looked at in 2010. The next page is our I-20 at State Route 5 Right Star Road Transportation Study, which we completed in, started in February 2015 and completed this year. The next page is the study recommendations. Now, when you talk about a SPLOST, in transportation dollars, let's say that you're going to spend $20 million on transportation. It's really not a whole lot of money. but, because transportation is so expensive, and if you look down on here, if you look at the split dotted interchange that's recommended, that's $33 million for just to do that one little interchange, okay? So what we would recommend is that we can go in and do, I don't think we're gonna have enough money to do the interchange, but we can do a lot of these other projects that are recommended under the I-20 State Route 5. And then we can look at some of these other ones that we haven't finished for transportation on these other lists. But, as I stated, it's, if you have a $37 million SPLOST and maybe 17 goes to parks or whatever else, maybe you have 20 left or 25, then you're gonna have to divide that up around the community.
And while Michelle is on there, I know I get a lot of questions from some of you, from your constituents, about neighborhood resurfacing. You know, Michelle and I talked about moving forward, coming up with a inventory of neighborhoods that need to be resurfaced. I don't think that we're gonna be able to do a ton of neighborhood resurfacing if there is a successful SPLOST. I'll just be honest, when you start looking at the price tag of Bright Star at Douglas Boulevard and Douglas Boulevard Road resurfacing, as Michelle said, you donate, or I should say you allocate $18 to $20 million in roads. A lot of these big roads, you know, Stewart Parkway, as Greg mentioned, and some of those, they're gonna be ate up. So there's just not gonna be a lot of money for neighborhood resurfacing. I was part of a conversation with Randy Halsey with the county, and he said they are having some of the same issue, and they're going to be faced with the same issue. I think, well, my recommendation for you guys is to look at these big ticket items. Don't get involved with the piecemealing that we can do 300,000 here or 300,000 there, mainly because if you have a successful SPLOST, this is your one time that you can get the big chunk items like a Douglas Boulevard done. If you go in and you try to, I don't think that you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck. The biggest bang for your buck is to try to chip away at those big ticket items. That would be my recommendation.
City Manager, I was gonna ask, now, is there something in the maintenance, I know we received that, fund?
LMIG?
Yes. that
We're
we
gonna
can do
cover
this.
that after this.
Okay, because I know,
That's the next
Chapel
section.
Hill subdivision, they said their streets haven't been resurfaced in 20 years. You know, and there are some parts in that subdivision where some of our trash trucks have gone through and scraped. You know, then they try to come in and put asphalt or whatever, and you can see patches, and it's just, and Charlton Crossing, just all over, really.
And that's where, because we have been busy with our other streets, we haven't been able to get into the neighborhoods, and we'll show you, and we still have an exhaustive list. So you guys will just have to decide, and we do, and I think it's a very good idea for us to do a neighborhood inventory of when you want to start to get into those neighborhoods and how you want to do it.
But the funding can come from Greg's department and, or no?
It can, based on the priority list,
Okay.
yes. And we can always shift those priorities as you guys see fit.
Okay, then the next one is what we call the TFA funding, and if you recall, HB 170 was passed just recently in the state legislature. And what this was being called the Transportation Funding Act. And what it is, it's statewide, and they're collecting money on the gas tax to spend more money throughout the state. Now, I don't know if you've noticed in past years, there's been a lack of maintenance, and there hasn't been enough money in the state to maintain all the bridges and intersection signs, guardrail replacements, and this mainly is to do those type of projects. It's also going to be increasing our LMIG money, which is our resurfacing money. That is supposed to go up 30% through this program with all the different cities and counties. And then it says 20% on here, but we're hearing 30%. And then the bridges will be doubled and then tripled in FY18. And not a lot of bridge work and guardrail. These are all safety projects that's been done throughout the whole state. And that's on the first page. Preventative routine maintenance will be doubled. And that's like crack filling, pothole repair, stripes, guardrail, and then safety improvement. So this is really good for the state that that's going to occur. On the next page, they talk about doing some major projects. And one of the major projects that you could see on here is the intersection of I-20 and Interstate 285. And we have been asking for that project for almost 10 years now, the improvements, and that's going to be really good for Douglasville, for economic and trade and moving people in and out of this area. So that is on there as a critical major project. And they're also talking about improving the managed lane system. And we do have managed lanes going out, HOV lanes going out, proposed to go out to State Route 5. Okay. And we had looked at Post Road, but right now it's State Route 5. So I don't know where we would be in line for that, because they actually have stated in our Atlanta Regional Commission meetings, transportation meetings, that they don't have a list of projects right now. GDOT doesn't, but they're putting a program together. So this is real general. And then it'll be that they're going to do improvements for economic and freight growth, and we do have a freight corridor, State Route 6, and we do have 2 studies that have been done on that. And usually if you need a project, in order to get a project, it has to be in some sort of study. And that's why I was showing you the study list, because you can't get a project unless you have a study. That's why we did the I-20 at State Route 5. So it has to kind of move forward in that manner. So that shows this, okay? Is there any questions on that? Okay, then the next page is, you had asked me about existing projects. These are the existing projects that we have going on right now. We have the State Route 92 project under construction. We have the Welcome Center T grant, which you're familiar with, which is a plaza. We also are working with Douglas County on a transportation services study for alternative transportation, and that has just recently been completed. We were working on the State Route 5 congestion intersection improvement project. Yeah, and we're doing State Route 5 at Wesley Pond, Arbor Parkway, Douglas Boulevard, I-20 westbound ramp, and Concourse Parkway. And we're in the environmental in that right now.
Is this a diamond conversion?
No,
Okay.
no.
This is just, it could be widening of Highway 5, it could
Some
be.
turn lanes, it's all
Turn
intersection
lanes.
improvement project.
Do we know a date or a time?
No, it all depends on how long it takes for environmental and then right away acquisition.
Future.
Okay, then we have the I-20 at State Route 5 Bright Star Road. Study is complete and projects to be determined. And then we have the Bankhead Highway, State Route 5 Bright Star intersection improvement. And a lot of you probably don't know about this, but it's in between Gurley Road and a little bit to the west of State Route 5. And they're doing some intersection improvements and left turn lane out there. And this is a GDOT project. Okay. Then we have lighting banners phase 2 on the north side of Dallas Highway, which is sidewalks, lighting banners. And then we have right now we're in a year-long regional traffic operations program called the RTOP. This is a program through Georgia Department of Transportation, and they do it on major arterials. And what it is basically, the Georgia Department of Transportation is paying for this, and what we're looking at is State Route 5 corridor, signalization and upgrades, cameras, and improving that whole corridor. It goes from Kings Highway all the way up to Rhodes Alley. And we've been in this project about 6 months now, working on that. I meet with the county every month on all these projects, sometimes every 2 weeks, depending on what we're doing, and the consultants. We have the ITS system expansion project. This is in environmental right now. And ITS is our intelligent transportation system, which this is your changeable message signs, your cable under the ground, your cameras, and all that type of information that is out there. We are putting cameras up on Chapel Hill Road, Douglas Boulevard, Hospital Drive, and it's also tying into the new road, State Route 92, which will have cameras on it. It goes to the Transportation Center, which is located at the old county courthouse. And all the cameras go in there, and we have viewing of, the roads and everything. Like we have State Route 5, I can't remember whether it would be Chapel Hill and the other quarters. And in fact, when we did our holiday transportation plan, the police probably know this, there was an accident on I-20 at Chapel Hill. I think it was the day before Christmas Eve, and it was brought up on our cameras, and we had immediately notified the police, and it showed backup, and then we were allowed to control the lights. Our consultants were there, they were in the transportation center, and to control the lights for that accident. And the police did talk with them and everything, we were going back and forth.
So we actually have an office in the old courthouse?
Yes, and with the cameras and yeah,
Wow.
everything for the transportation center.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like a little miniature version of the one downtown, or Cobb County has a real big one, and we're building on that. And this is with the county, okay? Then we have State Route 6 Thornton Road congestion and traffic reduction study. And that was complete, and we are looking at doing some laneage on the state for trucks and signage and things like that. That is a project that's underway right now. We have the Maxim Road intersection improvement project. We're improving that intersection. That's one of our highest congested and problem intersections, and we're in right away right now, okay, on that project. Then we have the State Route 6 access management study that we did. And this is GDOT initiated, and it is complete. So when I talk about these studies that we do, and if GDOT comes back in and they want to do road projects, when we do a study, we have projects in there that can be done, okay? And that, State Route 6 is a big freight corridor. You're all aware of the intermodal in Cobb County yard. It has thousands of trucks going in and out in the trains, and they're coming down I-20 and Camp Creek and also Thornton Road. So those are our existing transportation projects that are ongoing right now. Is there any questions on that before I go to the resurfacing program on any of that? Okay.
Michelle, will there be any funding near the Jesse Davis Park and Brown Street with GDOT doing the reconstruction? Will there be any funding that the city can utilize in regards to renovation in this area of the front line of the park?
For when you say renovation, you're talking about landscaping or signage. They're supposed to be putting the signs and landscaping back in that they took out. Whenever they do a road project, they're required to put that all back to the way it was. And if they can't, like on the sign, let's say maybe when they took it out, it crumbled, then they have to, get with you and do a new sign.
So we can have some say so a little bit in regards to the
Do we have like a status on when Brown Street is gonna be open, back open? Because right now it is, the way they have it right now, it has split Jesse Davis Park in half, and you can't get from one side to the other. And I'm just wondering if
Right.
That will be coming back.
Well,
That's gonna be a turnaround, that will be coming back.
we're just speaking in regards to, like when school is out in June, currently right now, the residents that live in Douglasville apartments, they can't make a left to go out, like for emergency
Yeah,
purposes.
yeah.
The only thing they can do is go up to Colquitt.
Well, what we were looking at was, they have to do the utility work first, which is 18 months. Now, I just did a meeting with C.W. Matthews Wednesday morning, and a lot of stuff is due to weather and whatever, they're about a month or two behind. Once the utility work is, and they can go in and start doing some surfacing down, and then I think that's where you'll probably see where it might let up. It may be, I'm thinking maybe another year. I'm not
What
sure.
was the target, that's right, what was the target completion date for that?
Okay, the target completion date is 2018, but after that you'll have approximately 18 months of small stuff being done. The road will be open, people will be on it, they won't see it, but it might be landscaping, some repair and curb and gutter,
So this was a 5-year contract, 5-year process.
yeah.
We're 2 years, we're a year plus in.
And most of the work that's being done up front now is the worst of it, because all this stuff is, you have to tear up the underground, you have to move the utilities,
Right.
you have to shut off water, you have to, pretty much inconvenience a lot of this, and you have to shut roads down until they get to a certain point.
Right, and I think we understand that as well as the residents. Hopefully with your meetings with the project manager, that
Yeah.
we have a little bit more input, or they have a little bit more accountability in regards to when the wire is going to be cut off. And also, is there a safety route in the event that there was a fire, because the fire station is on the other side of 92, but that road on Brown Street is closed.
I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
But we have had a meeting, we have had a meeting with the project manager. And hopefully we will have no more, any utilities being cut off without us paying us.
And in Brown Street, I mean, the way Brown Street is broken up right now, it's like, there's not a whole lot that they have to do. I mean, I was able to, I mean, if I could actually drove over what they've done.
I'll find out from CW Matthews what they're gonna be doing on that.
It's like a frontage road.
See if I can give you a report.
Brown Street is set up with that, with the new lines, it's like a frontage road.
Just making sure.
All right,
Okay.
we'll continue on the research and we'll get you guys, I know Michelle, we meet once a week on that and we.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, okay.
Okay, this is a list of, the next one is the resurfacing LMIG projects. This is a list of what we did in 2013, 14, 15, and 16. We have a 30% match. We're getting in about 221,000 a year, and then we have to put, sometimes, we have to put money in with it, sometimes 70,000, around that amount. So this shows you the roads that were done each year out of that amount of money. Now, the next one shows the list that was brought to you most recently for the 2016 program. And on this list, this was a list of priorities that you had looked at and prioritized for roads that you wanted to get resurfaced. And there is a couple on there that have been done, but basically this is the list.
And I would say add to that, that on this list are one of, are the streets that Greg Roberts would be recommending, specifically those that are toward the bottom of the list, that we know that are high priority, but just we can't really afford them for resurfacing. He said the only one that he would add that hadn't been on the list to be on the lookout for would be Doorley Lane, all the way from the courthouse to Bankhead Highway. He said if you've traveled that road specifically on the Bankhead Highway end, you know that that road needs some serious resurfacing, so he would add that one to the list.
And one of the things I know it's kind of small potatoes in transportation, but you can put a lump sum in for resurfacing if you want to in the SPLOST. But like the Douglas Boulevard, it's about, what is it, 1.5 million?
Yes.
To do that project. And that's a lot of money for resurfacing a road.
And Stewart Mill Road, is probably not gonna, Stewart Parkway, I don't think that's on here also. That one's not gonna be cheap either, because now you're again talking about essentially 5 lanes.
The reason
And
for,
Chicago Avenue is expensive.
Yes.
the reason for number 14, West Strickland Street being in red, what is the purpose of that?
I wanna
It's highlighted
say-
for some reason.
This was this is Greg's list, correct, Michelle? I wanna say this was highlighted because this one was in question with, what responsibility was ours in the county.
That would be where I was going with this. My question would be, we know that it's receiving probably much higher traffic, trying to get away from the road construction that's going on right now. And what part will the state play in reestablishing or repairing or helping us with that, rather than us putting it on a list to do during all of this 92 relocation? Would they have any responsibility to do that for us?
No, probably not. They give us the LMIG money, and that's where we can spend it. Now, the LMIG money under the TFA is supposed to increase. You can always lobby your GDOT board representative or the commissioner for GDOT if you want something or a special project. Doesn't mean you get it, but you can.
The only reason that I mentioned that is because we need to be sensitive to those areas around where the new 92
Two is
expansion
coming
is.
into, yeah.
And what part of this maybe they may have caused, and so could we possibly ask for that to be added to a project or included, since it's a direct result to the extended damage to it? I'm just asking a question. So
Well, we
maybe
can-
it
we can
saves
ask.
us in a SPLOST. It saves us money in a SPLOST that we don't have to then allocate to.
And that's another thing too, on our LCI program, we're gonna look at the old state route money too. Once they take the state route designation off, and move it over to the new road, that road becomes a local road, which, when you're under a state route, GDOT doesn't want you hardly doing anything. So if you go from Brown Street down to Church Street, we can do lots of things. We can do like a new entrance into the community. We can put on street parking, wide sidewalks, landscaping, we can do a roundabout.
With the LMIG money,
No,
No.
under LCI.
LCI.
under LCI, I'm sorry.
On LCI, but that road will become a local
Yes.
road, and that'll open it up, because otherwise GDOT, all they think about when they're on a major arterial is
There we-
zoom in and out, getting traffic in and out. They don't, look at aesthetics, which I think will benefit us, and we also have to rename that road once it takes state route designation.
And I don't wanna linger here, but I just wanted to make sure that maybe we lean upon them when we look at this list to see if we can get some help through those kinds of programs,
Yeah.
rather than allocating lots of money to it, if we can go
Well,
another route to get assistance there, when this all comes
Yeah.
back together.
yeah, and I would look at the LCI project for that area, but the LCI will not cover resurfacing, okay? So you have
But
to
it
look
will
at
cover
something.
improvement, once they
Improvements.
designate this as a local road and take the 92 designation
Yeah,
away.
you can go in and do intersections, sidewalks, what we call, streetscaping, stuff like that. And this area is in the LCI plan.
And before Michelle leaves this has been, in a sense, and you guys who've been with us for a while seen this has been your priority list. So Mayor, when we're looking at neighborhoods, the neighborhoods resurfacing would have to be added to this. So, when you're talking internally in the neighborhoods, one of the things that you guys will have to decide is where do they fit in this priority list? And one of the things that we're gonna go back and do is go back and put dollar amounts to these. And if there are neighborhoods you want us to look into, send those neighborhoods to us. And when we come back and sit down, seeing where they fall. My assumption is that these will rank higher than those internal streets in the neighborhoods.
And I don't know if Susan can answer this, but you may want to look at a lump. If you want to do some certain projects, you may want to just look at a lump sum fee in the SPLOST. Maybe that lump sum fee is neighborhood resurfacing or sidewalk or something else per larger projects that are very specific with main projects.
Yes.
Okay. The next one is, this shows you our FY 2016 LMIG formula amounts, shows the county amount and our amount. This is basically in our 30% match, so you add 30% on top of that 233, I think last year it was 221, I'm not sure. Oh, and then this basically shows what we've been getting and using for resurfacing. The next one, I'm sorry, is 2015, last year it was 232. And I gave you the list of the projects we did in that first chart to do that. This tells you what you can use your LMIG grant money for. We've been basically using it for resurfacing because we don't really have resurfacing money. But you can save the LMIG money up to 3 years, which means you could go up to 3 years, bank it, and then use it if you wanted to use it for other projects. The other projects are bridge repair, sidewalks, roadway signs, utility adjustments, construction supervision, and all these for right-of-way, street lighting, beautification, walking trails, landscaping. Now, we have chosen to use it all for resurfacing, and that basically takes you through that program. And I think that's,
I was gonna ask, would this be TAQC or?
no. This program, LMIG, is, they're, I guess, programs that are completely controlled through GDOT, programs that are completely controlled money through ARC, and then there's some that they are joint on, okay? There's about 15 funding categories for all these little different things, like there's bridge and maintenance, STP, LCI, CMAP, that you can go in and get projects for, okay? The LMIG is completely controlled through GDOT, okay? There are other county funding out there that's completely controlled through GDOT that we call them county or projects, which like the hospital drive, that was not an ARC, didn't come out of any of other funds. It came completely with what we negotiated with GDOT. When you go in and negotiate with GDOT, you can negotiate anything for them to pay for the whole thing, 20%, 50% split, it's whatever you negotiate with them. basically it's kind of done through the commissioner.
Okay.
And then they have other projects that they control, like their bridge and their maintenance and the LMIG, which is used for resurfacing. When you go down to ARC, they control projects that are, like STP, the Surface Transportation, and CMAP, and a variety of other things, which comes with your, a lot of your major projects, LCI, and stuff like that you go down there to get funding for. And that is done through, comes up through the TCC, Transportation Coordinating Committee, Transportation Air Quality Committee, up to the board, a program every year, and voted on and adopted, and your funding goes through that. Okay, and we did get the Riverside Bridge this year. We got that through ARC, remember, that was brought to you to apply, and we did get that project funded for preliminary engineering. They did fund some of the projects for the rest of it because there wasn't a Transportation Act adopted at the time when we went through that. But we did get money for that, so we will be putting out an RFQ and starting that project maybe about April.
Okay, so I would need your advice to help me with the council, because I'm gonna be appointed to the TAQC.
Yeah.
For transportation on the ARC, to
Mhm.
see which are GDOT projects and which are ARC that,
Mhm.
I can have influence with the commissioner,
Yeah.
with the chairman, and he is the chair of transportation for ARC, to
Mhm.
help the city get our projects.
Yeah, and I think we're very fortunate he's the chair.
And there again, that would assist us, Madam Mayor, as far as where we look in local projects as to what we can have included in either a state or an ARC project. We don't have to
We
address.
don't have to pay for it ourselves.
Yeah.
And sorry, anybody has any other questions? To piggyback on where Michelle is going for the sake of today's conversation and for direction and moving forward, the mayor and both the chairman had asked for staff members on both the city side and the county side to start meeting monthly as it relates to transportation. And the first few meetings that we're gonna have are gonna be directly related to SPLOST projects. Of course, one of the things that's gonna provide some interest for us to discuss, of course, is our service delivery agreement particularly as it relates to roads. So we're gonna have to be in sync on projects and talking about where we go. If you guys have no objection, our next steps are gonna be planning those meetings, moving forward those meetings. I know both the chairman and the mayor have requested to be a part of those first initial meetings. This will give staff some guidance so we can walk out of those meetings collectively with a list of projects. My assumption is, based on discussion today, is that you guys are comfortable knowing that a bulk of what an approved SPLOST is gonna cover is gonna be transportation. So that's where we'll be working when it comes to what the information that Michelle provided and then what we have moving forward. We will come back after those few meetings with a total number and some ideas of where we think we need to go collectively. And it's, as Ms. Littlefield said, the difficult part is going to be getting the county to be comfortable and in agreement with our projects. So we want to make certain we start those meetings early. Any more questions for Michelle on transportation? Some topics on SPLOST, and I want to be able to release you guys for 11:45. Joanne's going to check to see if lunch is ready, since we have to eat lunch next door, and give you guys 30 minutes for lunch, so we can catch up and get back on schedule. Other things that we think are important as it relates to covering in a SPLOST. We talked about parks, and as Councilman Adams mentioned, we don't really know if this is what we want to do, because we already know if we do a new project, it's going to increase our operations costs. I will tell you that we do need to consider some renovation costs to Jesse Davis Park. And the reason I say that is because we all know that once that road is done, it's going to change the face of the park. Before, Jesse Davis Park was kind of tucked behind. Now it's going to be basically very visible for a major state road, a state highway. Also, the concerns that Councilman Miller brought up as it relates to the football field, as it relates to usage. In your under tab, let's see if it's here, tab 6, we have the agreement for, or I should say the language as it relates to affiliated sports when it comes to Tiger Cubs, and we'll cover that later this afternoon when the Parks and Recreation Director is here. But if you look at that map, I have been approached by Jeff Justice, who is a local realtor in downtown. Some of you may know him. What's highlighted in that parcel 0001 is a piece of property that he's mentioned to me that's going on the market, and the folks who own that property are interested in us purchasing that property. The property is, if you look on the page after that, $24,900. It would provide opportunity for park expansion. I did tell him, I said, I can't give you any answer now, but I do have a question for you. Would the owner entertain an option? Us, rather than just going outright and purchasing it, getting an option and us looking at the feasibility if this would benefit us or not. And he said, well, I'll take that back, but I don't know if I'll have a response for you by Saturday. So I do think this is something for us to consider. I do think that we need to definitely have another meeting specifically to talk about parks and to consider what the mayor's concern and several of your concerns are, is how far do we want to open up our parks operations? How do we limit those? How do we contain those with the amount of money that we can afford? But knowing that we have some challenges here that we need to do some cost renovations. The reason I pointed out the numbers on Hunter Park, because of course, you're talking 5 years ago, but those costs were about $8 million. How much money do you want to spend? We'll have to take a look. We don't have a ton of time for this huge feasibility study, but taking in consideration what Ms. Callen is saying and what I would be recommending, whatever budget we set, that's where we have to stay. I think many of you who've been with us for a while know in many occasions some of these projects go over budget. My recommendation would be very similar to what's happened with the T project, where Michelle Wright is recommending, okay, this is how much money we have in the bucket. Everything else would have to be considered an add-on. And it would have to be considered an add-on and done at a later date, rather than us doing everything and then the project's running over cost. I think one of the things that has to be considered, if we are to do a renovation, how is that going to expand operations? I think we have to be very realistic about that. I think if it means including additional staff, including additional maintenance costs, all of those things have to be tallied into what our future costs are going to be. So my recommendation is that we look at that, this be included, this be, a park item for renovation and a SPLOST. I think this is the one opportunity we can move forward with having a large ton of money dedicated to that. And I'll open it up for discussions if you guys agree, disagree, or want us to head in a different direction. But I do think we need to make certain to take a look at this park.
I guess my concern is that what benefit do we gain by having this piece of land?
That I don't.
And because it's not big enough, I don't think, for practice. You can see here's the field here for the football field, and it's nowhere near the size of that field.
It's also very hilly. I will say though that we own the parcel immediately above it though.
774.
We do.
77, 74, the city owns now.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What about that area between the two, or to the right, to the east of those two? That wooded area, it's not, that is part, they will already own that also, correct?
So we
It's
own.
part of that parcel.
Yes, 6593.
So that would just kind of complete that area.
Yeah, it would connect.
That
That makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, correct. Now, there is no money budgeted for this purpose, of course. Again, and that's the reason I asked for the option. And as Karen continues to remind me on every project, Marcia, there's rock. Yes, ma'am. So, and that's the reason I asked Mr. Justice, would there be an opportunity for us to do an option to do some type of, evaluation? Or you guys may say, hey, the cost is so little, do we want to spend, $5,000 to $10,000 on a analysis when, we're only looking at, $24,000? I don't know. But if you are interested in even looking at the property, let me know. I want to be able to communicate with Mr. Justice about that.
I think we're interested.
Okay.
We have to do an environmental phase one before we can buy it anyway.
Yes.
With all that time since.
We have to do a phase one before we can buy partners.
Yeah. It's about $1,200. Yeah, it's about $1,200 per square.
So if we got this.
we're about $1,200. We'll have to do one on the old mill, so we can toss it all in there, maybe we can get a deal.
Well, we will talk about our affiliated stores and all of that.
We are this afternoon. For this purpose, this is about looking at the future of Jesse Davis Park and how do we come up with funding to take a look at the park needs overall. So if you guys are comfortable, our step moving forward when it comes to parks is going to be that we look to some cost on renovation, and that would be included in the SPLOST, as well as coming back with you on some operations costs and how those would increase future if we do this as a capital project.
In doing that, Ms. Hampton,
Yes.
would we be able then to get an update as to the owners of these parcels and make sure that council understands what we already own in the area?
Yes.
What is city owned by either street address or by parcel number, so that it would help us to see from a bird's eye view what we
Yes.
would have in adding that piece, please?
Yes.
We don't own any of the 0007, right?
0007. I don't know.
Which is right next to, the Hawthorne Center, so I
Correct.
assume.
I think that goes with the facility, the solar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Ms. Hampton,
Yes, sir.
this is when they started the 92 project. This is one of Councilor Scott interests is making this park be one of the premier park once the road is finished.
Yes. All right, so that's parks. That's what we'll look at when we come back to you guys, when we start getting into more detail on priority list for SPLOST. The other project that we have to take a look at, and this will include a current project that we have, is City Hall renovations. It's been, the attorneys would have to tell me, it's been a long time, of course, since we have done anything with City Hall. Of course, once we moved the council chambers out of City Hall into the conference center, we have staff, Kelly and her department, her operations are there, including a staff member from the Human Resources Department. Many of you have discussed with me your concerns about where HR is located, about your concerns just about the front desk area and security. And then of course, we did present to you how much it was going to cost to renovate the windows to deal with some of our issues on the exterior of the building. So I do believe that it's time, and if we're going to do something, this might be an opportunity for us to just go ahead and do a full-scale renovation to maximize the amount of space. I think I don't think that there's a need to go ahead and extend, but I do believe that the way the space is currently laid out, we can do a better job of maximizing the space so everybody can work comfortably in their areas and we're not having folks kind of scattered throughout the building. Also with that, Michelle reminded me that, of course, more than likely, as part of this T project, none of the projects with the Welcome Center are going to get done. This might be an opportunity to go ahead as well to include those projects in with the SPLOST. So in a sense, you'll have your plaza done, you'll have the Welcome Center, and you can have City Hall. So that whole core and center can be completed, and your square will basically be improved. And that would include your entrance to City Hall. You may want to change your main entrance to City Hall to off of the plaza. You may want to do that. But all of that's going to take dollars, and it's going to take significant dollars, more than we currently have, and this would be an opportunity for us to do that. And of course, with the proposed project of the Welcome Center, Michelle, remind me if I'm wrong, the main entrance we're moving off of the plaza for the Welcome Center. So when folks come into the Welcome Center, they're going to come in off of the plaza. That will be the main entrance to the building. So I think that it would make sense to take a look at that. I think that's a more pedestrian-friendly entrance, and I think it would just enhance the plaza overall. I don't have any cost on those. That would be something I would have to go back and take a look at. Renovation cost. Karen was reminding me the cost to renovate the conference center years ago when we did that. The old conference center was about $4 million. So not saying that that's a ballpark number, but it's definitely not something that we can pull out of the bank if we want to start renovating. And those windows and brick cost estimates were coming in well over $100,000.
That's the biggest issue is the building falling apart.
Correct.
And that has to be corrected.
and there are areas in the building with the most recent last few weeks where it rained for a few days straight, where there are leaks in the building. Greg and I have talked about that we have to deal with. I know in that back hallway, we've had some issues, so we talked about the roof. So, you know, we can piecemeal it, or we can take this opportunity to take a look at it and say, let's do something different.
Climate with people and human resources too, it's just, it makes me nervous right in the front,
Yeah.
you know, for employees, for privacy, to have a conversation, but not only that, but people just kind of off the street.
Joanne did tell me that they're not gonna release lunch until 12:15, so y'all are gonna hear some more presentations until then, but I will give you guys a break, I promise. And then one of the other things I want to cover, and I'll have Ms. Callan address this. If you look all the way to the back under tab 7, that we have a priority list, and that priority list came from your colleague, Councilman Siegel. He wanted to make certain that he got his information in, and one of the things that he has listed is refinancing of existing debt. So Karen and I were kind of talking. I think on the one hand, it is something to consider, but I think what you have to consider is what, in a sense, that you gain by refinancing the debt. You gain by refinancing the debt that debt is eliminated. However, when Karen and I were looking, if you take a look at which page was that, Karen? Under her presentation, here it is. It's under tab 2 as part of her presentation, the slide that says current debt. You know, we can look at refinancing some of these paying off some of these debts. Fire station, I mean, I would not recommend that. You don't really gain anything when you look at your outstanding principal. We're almost done with that. The Hawthorne Center, you pick up $134,000, but you're talking about 2019 when that's paid off. With the GEO bond, we're not going to deal with, but if you go down to West Pines, you'll pick up about $193,000 or so that annually that you'll pull back, or you can, you know, look at the conference center. Now the downside with that is, if you look at West Pines and the conference center, that's $17 million of your $37 million. So if you think about a park, if you think about transportation, and you think about doing something with City Hall, that eats up any of that opportunity. So I think what you'd have to do is to just decide, is it worth paying off $17,000 and chewing up $17,000 to gain $1 million a year?
Well, I think.
And well, you wouldn't gain $1 million.
Only the general fund portion
Yeah, only the general, I'm sorry, only the general fund portion
of the conference.
of the conference center. So, it's something to consider. It's on the table. I don't think it's, you know, worth, definitely not the 17 million, you know, or like as she said, just the general fund portion.
To pay down debt as possible.
Yeah. But it's an option.
So I know, Marcia, you included that because that was part of the SPLOST conversation. Is there going to be an opportunity in our schedule for us to bring if we had things for the board or for
Yes.
our wish list? Okay.
Correct.
And I would like to include all of his issues.
Right.
Yes.
And as your facilitator, I would want to make sure as well, since you are here and present, that you have an opportunity just as this to discuss the things in your areas of your
And I
city.
brought a list also.
Yes.
Thank you, Mark.
And mine are not heavy items, so, I mean, the mill property, you know, there are some things that are really need to get done, and it's an eyesore.
Right.
That's what I'm focusing on, is eyesores, things that have to get done, and other things are just cosmetics, and cosmetic things that we can do also that are not real pricing. So, so I'm got a little bit of both, you know, and I'll bring this up every year, ready to add something.
Correct. And this, you know, I mean, for the purpose of this presentation was really to tell you the big ticket items that staff, you know, basically we have on the forefront of our minds that we know that are going to be there. They're going to be sitting there. The things that you probably within the next 2 years will have to face. Again, transportation will never go away. so that's always gonna be there, that'll always be a concern for you. The other two, the park and the welcome center, are just big ticket items that we know, that you'll have to deal with at some point as well. Now, as it relates to your priority items, definitely get those to us. You know, those are things we wanna definitely be able to look at, and we can also talk about those this afternoon, or even talk about them now as we wait for lunch. Yes, sir.
Samson, if I could just piggyback on your comment about that, I think in order for everyone to be represented and all the citizens around the city to have a voice, it would seem to me that you would at least want to consider something at all of transportation. I realize is the largest piece that we know we're missing. I think it would behoove us to look at potentially, with respect to Mr. Siegel's comments, in paying off some of the debt in order to show some fiscal responsibility when you ask the citizens to sign on. Well, even though you're not gaining a lot,
Right.
well, let's look at potentially, let's just use West Pines, for instance, $4 million. That's been a point of contention, and it's in my ward, as to why are we operating that at a loss each year? Well, the fact of the matter is that it was voted upon in 1992 that the city buy that. Whether or not you approved it, whether or not you wanted it, whether or not you're in favor of it now, I still think that it would be a fiscally responsible position for us to at least consider a portion of any SPLOST to try to eliminate some of the debt that the city has with those funds. That's all I'll say at this time.
And I'll add to Councilman Adams', point as well is, of course, you want to put things that are going to be, the citizens are going to show favor with.
Sure.
So you want them to be supportive of that. You want them to be able to say, okay, this is a good project. I'm willing to retire the debt on that, and I feel comfortable with sales tax going there. Any other questions? And we'll take a break. And I'm probably going to ask the PD to start a portion of their presentation before lunch. I'm pretty certain they can divide their stuff in half. No, they're not ready. They said 12:15. Or do y'all want to keep going until 12:15? Okay, they said keep going. Okay. Any questions on SPLOST, on projects, anything, heartburn, concerns, things that you feel like we've left off? Our next steps, again, are going to be starting our meetings with the county, trying to get these priority project lists together. Please be prepared for some special work sessions that we're going to ask you guys to attend so we can talk about these. So, there will be possibly during the day, but we'll have to have several meetings to make certain that we're all on one accord before we leave those items.
Lost dollars we were talking about, and Mayor Lieutenant Yaki brought up the cosmetic issues, but they do make a big difference.
Yes.
And I'm talking with you, Marcia, about Fairburn Road and Highway 5 and just driving and wanting it to be more pleasant when you drive down the street. So I don't know if that's lost or if that's just something that it kind of looks piecemeal junky. I mean, it's the older area of Fairburn, but it's really how to use it. A lot of people get off at that exit, so you still need to try to do something. I don't know if you write the business owners, ask them to please do by the Wendy's and fix up your parking lot. You can send a nice letter to everyone in the city, all the business owners. We would love for everyone to do a facelift. I don't know if you have some type of project to maybe help them. I know the DEA used to have that
Facade
grant. But if there's something just for general businesses in the city, if they need a little help to put some makeup on there.
We've talked about, and myself and Chris Pumphrey at the Development Authority talked about CIDs. Of course, everybody knows how the CID works, Community Improvement District, where the businesses around contribute some money to help with beautification. Of course, the nearest one to us would be Camp Creek Parkway. In that area, they have a CID. Kennesaw, Cumberland Mall has a CID. Of course, all those monies go to beautify. Now, when the road project, when they were doing the bridge project, a lot of the business owners, as some of you remember, were very upset with us. They were, even though that was a GDOT project, they were just very upset, basically, the way that, how long it took to do the road project, how it infringed upon their business. So you know, in most recent years, they haven't been willing to contribute. But I can say that as part of what Michelle brought up, when we look at a SPLOST, those are monies that we can put in for beautification, for upkeep and maintenance, or I shouldn't say upkeep and maintenance, but to do something to beautify what's along that area. Now, I will say, what's probably most concerning are the things that we can't affect, which is their property, is probably what you are not happy with.
Trees, need some trees and
So, you know, the road itself is fairly new, as you know. But what you are most unhappy with is the age and the aesthetic look of the property, which,
Can we get some paint? I mean, I know Commissioner Mitchell just did a paint campaign for the Senior Citizen Center Day. I went on Martin Luther King Day and helped paint the recreation room for the seniors. So I don't know if it's something that community-wide, you know, we just say, we want to help our businesses look better, you know, can everyone contribute, all the businesses, and have a day where people come in the community and help paint and clean up? And
we can have KDB look at doing a community enhancement day to get some volunteers out to encourage and see if they're willing to participate in helping enhance the aesthetics of their property. We can do that.
Jan, we keep Douglasville beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
And I think we have to look at the entire downtown area in regards to what is decaying, okay? Everybody know where the snowdrift sign is? I mean, some of this stuff is easy stuff in regard to, if you know where the snowdrift sign is drifting away. And so, we gotta do something with that, we're gonna lose it.
And some of it is us. Some of it is us.
Yeah, and so we've got to do some, stuff like that, okay? Because with the plaza being renovated and changing, and now we're gonna, you know, so that kind of stuff, which is easy stuff, you know, it's not expensive, and that might be a $5,000 or $10,000 project, and, but stuff like that, and also like with Broad Street, trying to fix up Broad Street, and I think we can get public and private to help with that, and make recommendations on what we can do to enhance that area, and the security. I mean, you know, we've had people die on our railroad tracks, and we don't have a fence, and I don't want a fence off the north side, but I want, you know, a fence to protect people from going into the railroad track area.
Marietta has that.
Yeah, Marietta. Yeah. It's right there on, if you right, you know, on the city side, I mean, on the north side of the north side, south side of the railroad track, so that you don't have people walking. They gotta go to the, you know, where you can cross over the other cars.
I think if we did something like that, we would definitely have to do some type of advance notification, because the first thing folks are gonna think is you're trying to block people off from the south side of town.
That's right.
We will have to get authorization from Norfolk Southern to do that. They typically do not want anything near the railroads.
Go to Ackworth.
Correct. And they have CSX. They have a different railroad company and a different relationship. And they were able to even get a pedestrian arm, where we sometimes don't even get a conversation. So we can definitely try again, but the fencing is definitely something I think you guys need to have some serious conversation about if you're going to go in that direction, just because I know what the public perception is going to be if you were to put up a fence on the railroad, and you're saying you don't want people to cross the tracks, because that the group homes that are on Strickland Street and those residents that live there, they do cross the tracks often because they go to the stores. They visit those stores. It may be something that you just want to put on the back burner, because as part of the Highway 92 relocation, McCarley Street, that is right across from the Welcome Center, will have a pedestrian walkway. So that whole thing is going to be improved. So it may be something to say, okay, that's for another day. Let's see how the McCarley Street improvements are going to work before I start putting up a fence. Because I can tell you, I was part of a meeting, I think it was DDA, and somebody made the comment about putting up a wall or blocking, and it was not good.
Well, I see these other communities doing it.
Yeah.
And it's aesthetically, it's beautiful.
Correct.
I mean, it looks great.
And a lot of it has to do with your government's relationship with the railroad. And which railroad you're working with.
And in Norfolk Southern has always, you know, I don't have no reason why, but they've always been difficult to deal with. But when we talked about that incoming corridor after they moved the state route over, Campbellton will also be closed, and there has been discussion of making it pedestrian-friendly crossing there, like in downtown Marietta. They have a very pedestrian-friendly crossing across there. So those are some of the things that you could look at through the LCI program. Also, we're doing our 15-year update on the LCI. We're just starting that. If you remember, I brought that to you, I think about a month ago. And in that update, our LCI stops at Hospital Drive, but the county has an LCI that starts at I-20 in Fairburn Road. Our stops at Hospital Drive and Fairburn Road, and we're putting in to connect that corridor. So that may also help you where you can go in and get some money for some different projects. In the new LCI 15-year program, 15-year update, that's what we're looking at. So,
Question there, Ms.
that
Wright,
may help.
but won't the area between where 92 splits off and the
Brown Street.
intersection coming from the south, will not the area of what we know as Highway 92 now in front of the bank and the Dairy Queen and so forth, won't that become a local road once 92 is relocated?
Yes.
So then it would have to come under an LCI project rather than a state, because it will no longer be a state highway.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So,
Ms. Michelle,
do you want me to come up here?
Ms. Wright, no, I can talk to you. You can look straight ahead and talk. In your feasibility study, have you ever looked in bringing a replica depot back?
The depot.
And in the past years, we did look at bringing the depot back. At one time, it's located down south on Chapel Hill Road in a,
Not that one.
not that one, okay. But it didn't seem feasible. We're, in our LCI plan, our first LCI plan, we do have a depot. And if you look at the beginning of my presentation, it shows a picture there of some people standing at a depot. And in that, there is a depot designated to go up and along that route. We are a commuter rail station designated here. And so we had looked at putting a depot at one time right around where the Mill and Banquet Highway is with parking. You can see the first picture that comes out of our LCI plan, looking at putting a depot along the railroad there. So we are, that is something for the future that we can look at.
Well, I know, are we getting lunch?
Actually, I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, so you guys can get lunch, I'm gonna cover, the City Development Authority, so you guys can actually have a 30-minute lunch, if you guys don't mind, just kind of moving the agenda, because that's me and that's no attachment, but go ahead.
This is just gonna put a vote on your statement, your question, Councilman Davis, and say the elephant in the room. Of course, we were talking about aesthetics and the railroad track and all of that in the depot. The elephant in the room is that traditionally in our community, the north side has been minority, and there's been a lot of, we want inclusion, because some of the sentiments have been that it was not inclusion. So anything, we'd be very sensitive about anything that would give an impression that that community is not being included. And so that depot issue, when I was on council, Attorney Littlefield just reminded me, Henry Mitchell and I talked about it, and we were trying to bring the depot back. We thought it was great. We had a campaign, we had railroad hats and, all that gear, and people pushed back adamantly because it was a segregated time in history and in Georgia, and that depot they said that would be a reminder every day of, they couldn't use the restrooms there, they couldn't, people couldn't drink water, all of that. So I don't know, maybe the climate has changed
It has
because
changed.
our community is changing, and,
This one in the LCI is a new
Yeah.
platform, new everything, and it's for
It's
having
changing.
commuter rail coming out here.
Oh, it's
It's not-
beautiful. I thought it was a good
Yeah.
idea before, but the community said, don't you dare.
Well, they were talking, I think they were talking about the old depot
Yes.
because.
do a replica.
Well, I don't think it necessarily has to be a replica. I think you probably want to look at something that's.
Oh, it could be a
that-
restaurant, gift
And
shop.
Roberta, Georgia, and other places in the state have done great with depots, and we do have the train there.
Well, Atlanta has
Carlsville.
one.
Too. We just need to remember that.
Commuter
Well,
rail.
my recommendation on the depot would be that, not to increase cost of operations, we'll recruit somebody to build a depot, and they can put a private development in there, and it won't be the city, but we'll have a depot and it'll be a private development, we'll do it that way. And it won't be ours.
But we're fortunate to have a stop Douglasville, because it goes Atlanta to Douglasville in agreement.
We do have a
So,
stop?
yes, for commuter rail in the future. So I think that we're somehow gonna have to have parking or something because of that.
All right, and for the sake of time, if there are no more questions on that, I'm gonna cover CDDA, the City of Douglasville Development Authorities, to allow you guys to have a non-working lunch. And we will break at 12:15 to have lunch. Where we were when we last left off, Councilman Adams, you're still Community Development Committee Chair. We talked about outsourcing services with our county development authority. Of course, you know, there's just been some back and forth about combining. Should we combine the development authorities? Why does the city even have a development authority? And the consensus at the time with the current body of elected officials that it was a good idea to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the county's development authority for services, and which would mean that the county development authority's executive director would basically be the executive director also over the city's development authority and provide those services for the city. Last we left off back in August of 2015, that agreement was sent over to the county, and then we entered into an election, and the county decided they wanted to wait. So they've been waiting. So Chris Pumphrey and I had lunch on breakfast on yesterday, and he and I had a very good meeting. What he mentioned to me that his concerns via the intergovernmental agreement that were sent over were really, in a sense, semantics, different things that he and I could work out from a staff level. There were a lot of checks and balances that were in that agreement that were, there were a lot of checks and balances. They were probably, almost in a sense weekly reports to me. There were a lot of meetings that would create a lot of time. And he and I kind of came to an agreement that we could work this out simplistically, where he would come before the council and make quarterly reports, very similar to what I'm asking of all of the staff members to make quarterly reports to you guys. I would still remain as city manager, his main contact. The City of Douglasville's Development Authority would remain in existence as a body. As you know, that there are a variety of bonds and different projects that the city's development authority has financed. So we would not want to dismantle that group, but he would staff that rather than myself. And then also we would pay to provide for the staffing the same total money that we talked about previously, which was $50,000 a year, which we have in the budget, which we're able to cover. And then the county's development authority, for any projects that they would get in the city, would get a portion of those bond fees, and that was worked out in the other agreement as well. So those things would remain the same. His chairman requested a more simplistic agreement. I think the one that we sent over was somewhere between 10 to 15 pages. It was exhaustive. So he's going to work on that, send back some revisions, but we hope to move forward with an agreement where we can move forward with and we can get those services from the county. I can tell you over the last couple of months, Chris and I, we probably meet once a month on a variety of projects and a variety of things. He's going to also seek to have a very similar agreement with the city of Villarica, so that we're all consistent across the board. So when the state is looking for projects for Douglas County, they're looking to one person. This agreement would not include your downtown development authority. That's a different entity. That's something completely different altogether than industrial development. But this would be primarily for industrial development. One of the things he's going to talk to you about in the future would include the opportunity and availability of land for development. One of the things he and I talked about was very similar to the situation you faced with the Sweetwater neighborhood and the distribution center that you had a few months ago. Let's talk about planning, getting together with the planning directors of both the city and the county, so we can get a handle on where we are, so we can be ahead of the curve. So when these projects come, that he, as the executive director, can be able to speak to the businesses that come in the community, because he will have that relationship with both planning directors beforehand. So I think that we have an opportunity for a better working relationship moving forward. I know the mayor and the chairman have had some conversation about that, and I'll let her speak on her behalf, but she and I have talked about, her interest of whether or not she believes that she should serve on that authority. or not, I can tell you that the rule of thumb is an elected official does not serve on an industrial development authority. That's just typically not how they work. I mean, you do have an elected person that serves on a downtown development authority, but again, that's a different monster. You guys are the checks and balances with the industrial development authority when they come to you for your bond deals. That's where your tax incentives, that's where you pretty much, just know your bond deals for your tax incentives, that's where your control lies, if you want to incentivize that project or not, as well as you control that through your planning and development. So if your zoning is correct, if your planning is correct, there should not really need to insert an elected official in that process, but the mayor can speak as to her stance on that.
I don't think that it's necessary for the mayor to serve on that board. In particular, if we are setting policy and we have boards and authorities that are doing the day-to-day management, then it's gonna come to us. I think it's micromanaging for an elected official to be on that board. And in addition to that, if industry or something else is coming in, I've already given okay as a board member before it even gets to the zoning board meeting and get the rest of the elected body. So if we have confidence in the people that we hire to do those jobs, then I think that we should let them do that. I met with our city development authority, great group of folks. You know, we've lost 2 members. Kit Berry had a conflict of interest because he is on the ARC, so he had to leave. And then John Sell went over to the county. So we still would want to keep our city's development authority because we have those bond issues with
we have Gordon Foods, we have BioLife, and then we also have Medline.
So just because we're already bonded with them and we have agreements, so we have to, if anything were to come back, we still need our city development authority to be in place. But that county authority, we have, most of the people on the county development authority are city residents, and they give reporting to us. So I don't think that it would be beneficial outside of just wanting to know what's going on for the mayor and elected body to be on that board. The chairman and I talked, he said he doesn't need to be on there, I don't need to be on there. They'll give quarterly reports, and Marcia, our city manager, county manager, Chris Humphreys would meet and give us reports.
Does the current agreement address that?
We're not under a current agreement. We had an MOU that basically said that we would work together, but no, the current agreement does not. It does not address it, so that's something that the executive director would take a look at. He did send me the names of the individuals who serve on that board, on his county authority, that are city residents, and that would be Ron Wilson, Jimmy Wren, Gary Miller, Walter Hudson, John Sell, and Mike Stevens. Now, he and I kind of bounced back and forth the idea of having 1 or 2 of those members actually share both a position on both boards. To kind of provide some opportunity for continuity if you guys are interested in that, since they are city residents. I told him I will present that to you, or you guys may say you want to appoint 2 different people. Also, the mayor and the chairman serve as ex officio members of the County Development Authority anyway. So they're non-voting members, but they're ex officio. So they're there, they at least have that level of purview where they're at the meetings and they know what's going on, but they don't have any voting authority.
Madam Mayor, would that continue then under
Yes.
your feeling? You'd still continue to be an ex officio member?
Yes, sir.
But you would not have a voting membership?
Yes.
So, that's to consider. I do think that this is something that in this calendar year, I would like to see that we kind of wrap up. This is something that's been dangling out there for the last couple of years as far as the working relationship between these 2 authorities. I can tell you that, as I said several months ago when we went back, I have not seen, as I serve as the executive director of the Development Authority, not a real benefit for us to have a staff person. There's not enough development and there's not enough work that goes on in this area for the city of Douglasville to compensate for an executive director to serve in this position. If there would be, I can tell you, I wouldn't be able to serve as city manager and executive director of the Development Authority. I wouldn't be able to work in doing those 2 functions. The most recent deal that we did was the refinancing of the bonds for Medline for an expansion. That was over the Christmas holidays, but prior to that were the deals that you saw with Trimron, McMaster car was a recommendation. So everything you guys, you automatically see and you approve. There hasn't been anything that they have done that you hadn't.
So the proposal is gonna have leave the current board or some compilation of the board for the city. Now, I guess going back to the issue of having joint members, I would wonder if there might be a conflict of interest by a joint member. You see an issue coming up.
I don't. I would have to verify with John Bernal, who has been the attorney for the Development Authority. Our attorney sitting here may see some issue with that. That was just something that came up from Mr. Pumphrey. It wasn't something that I, had thought about at all. But his thought was, if you guys are having trouble having both serve, we have people who have interest in the city, and they may want to do that.
I can see, but if something came up where there was a division where the city maybe at some, I just may see a potential conflict.
Well, there's more potential than meets the eye. I mean, because we annex property in the county, sometimes we give them a better zoning deal than the county would, and that's necessarily gonna come up in some way at the outset of a deal.
So you're suggesting that we not have members with joint membership?
I'm not making a suggestion, I'm certainly not telling you that it's illegal, I'm just saying, think it all
The
out.
propensity for conflict is definitely
That's
there.
a possibility that might happen at some point.
Ms. Hampton, would you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you and I have had this conversation about the downturn or the usability of properties within the city limits that would even be qualified for industrial development now, and how we're on the downswing as far as having a lot of that anymore. Of course, the county would have the vast majority of it. Is there any, that had something to do with mine and your conversations over, do we really need that staff person? Because we really don't have that much developable property, industrial developable property to even present to someone.
Correct.
And is that basically still the
That's
general
still the
attitude?
same. It is. Of course, the bulk of the property that we had that was remaining was bought up by Tyler Perry. So, that's pretty much where, all of our property was located off of Riverside Parkway. And that really leads Chris and I's conversation about him having that relationship with the planning directors. Because he's also really with the county, they're in a very similar situation. They don't have a ton of property. You have some property down there at 166, but when you start talking about industrial development and where you want to develop that industrial area, it's still Riverside Parkway. How far and how much do you have left and what you want to do with it? So I think that, now, yes, the economy is turning a little, but I think we still have some time where, given the opportunity for that executive director who deals with that to meet with the city and the county's planning staff members, I think this is a huge opportunity for us both to get on the same page, considering we're in the same situation, and directed by both governments being on the same page. So my comments here today is to just let you know what the mayor's thoughts are with that. The next thing that you will see will be an agreement that's been forwarded from the county back to the city of Douglasville's Development Authority the mayor currently sits on. I'll have to talk to the attorneys about having the mayor removed as a member, that being her desire, and see where we go from there. And of course, we do have the issue of board members. If you look at Councilman Siegel's list of priorities, is that we start advertising on in the newspaper as well as on city TV for board members and for volunteers, and I should say. And we have been advertising on city TV for the last, how long, Kelly? 3-4 months maybe?
I think it's back in September, October.
Yeah, so, and I do get some calls periodically about people willing to serve, but I did mention to Michelle Wright that we need to go back and start advertising in the paper. We used to do that years ago, we just haven't done it in a long time. So hopefully that will improve and then be a direction of the mayor. The mayor has asked that I sit down with staff to start talking about volunteer fair. So we're gonna start working on that to get more interest in people wanting to serve. But with the mayor's, if she leaves that authority, you're looking at 3 members that you have to appoint.
You have lots of vacancies all across the board for board participation in the city.
Well, we might want to look at expanding or explaining what's going to happen in the future. I know I've spoken to folks about being on boards and getting involved, and they're like, why? y'all, these boards haven't been allowed to be what the board is. And anybody that's sophisticated enough to wanna get on these boards know that it's kind of a waste of time. That's the perception. I'm not saying that's necessarily reality.
Yeah,
I think
people
we
don't
need
want
to-
meet to meet.
I think we need to focus on having telling the story that it's a new game in town. We're looking at proper development and moving forward instead of thwarting these boards before. That's been an issue about getting people on the board, getting the right folks on these boards.
So maybe marketing, if we were to, like we're having our appreciation day for volunteers that have served on the boards before, and I thought about maybe Georgia Cities Weeks talked about this, that they do that at that time. Maybe I talked to the city manager and said we can get a certificate, look back and see who served on boards and have a luncheon and invite all those folks to come to the luncheon and tell them thank you. And at that time, maybe that promotional, we could do, historic preservation, downtown development authority, zoning board, and just put a description of what those boards are, and maybe talk about Patrice and different folks talk about those boards and try to solicit some participation to volunteers.
And an idea of what they want to do going
Yes.
forward.
Yeah. So a projection, so they know they're doing something, they're going somewhere, not just a description of what it is, but what we're looking about in the future.
And just a quick interjection too, I developed the boards, commissions, and authorities policy for Valdosta, and exactly what Marcia's talking about and what you all are talking about is a great way to get your citizen servants involved. And we actually developed a handbook that gave a description of each of the board, commission, authorities, so they would know what is it that we do. But since we are a city of ethics, we also require them to sign the same code of ethics that the elected officials had to sign, because it is important. But what you're talking about, recognizing those volunteers is just a very valuable thing because they're giving of their time.
We appreciate that.
Alrighty, well, that's City Development Authority. That's what we're gonna be looking to wrap up this year. And with that, you guys are free to use the restroom for 12:15 lunch being served. And we will see you back at 12:45.
Eastern or Central?
12:45.
We're pretty close.
I don't know what time.
Okay.